So here is the Garnacha, if some of you have. The Rosé, it's 100% Garnacha. It's in steel tank, so this wine sees no oak whatsoever. And this is part of the flexibility of Garnacha. You can have a light, beautiful citrus rosé all the way up to a powerful, just as powerful as Cabernet, oaked, old vine Garnacha. So that is one reason why Garnacha is my favorite varietal. It's so flexible. It can be mistaken for red Zinfandel. It can be mistaken for a white Chardonnay. It can be mistaken for a Malbec with its white pepper notes. It can be mistaken for a Bordeaux, a Cabernet from California. So the winery and Mother Nature plays her huge role. And then depending on the age, the elevation, can become something completely different style of wine. So this is the rosé, bright. Does anybody have the rosé with them? Anybody drinking yet? Ah, good. So this is the rosé. So for me, and everybody's different. Palates are like fingerprints. Everybody has different palates. But our mission at Bodega Borsao is to have a citrus, a tangerine style nose and taste. So this really throws off a tangerine note. When I was a youngster, my mother would always bring home the little cuties, the nectarines. Anybody remember the cuties in the bags, the little cuties? So when we were making this up a few years ago, we changed the composition of this. The tangerine is our focal point. So that's where we're going. This is only on the skins in the tank for about an hour and 20 minutes. It does a gentle balloon press, push down, and then extract those skins, get the skins out. Trust me, Garnacha is a dark blackberry grape. This is not dark and blackberry. This is a bright, almost salmon color rosé. So this is our, as kind of developed Garnacha that you can get, this nice classic rosé, and it does very well. And thank you, Colorado. It's been a big hit in Colorado for years. We appreciate you. So enjoy on the patio. That tangerine is what we're going for. We get those skins out again every hour and 15 minutes. You get those skins out and achieve this flavor. So bright, 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 refreshing, 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 great with food. And that is, I think, my most favorite part about Garnacha. It can go with anything. You could have this with, well, Memorial Day weekend. You could have this on the patio with some watermelon, spit the seeds, as I used to do with the folks. You can have this with cantaloupe. You can have this with a salad. You can have this with salmon. But as we go up, and you'll see how Garnacha can be, you can have Garnacha with a porterhouse, just like a big honking Cabernet from California. So that's that versatility, one of the greatest versatile wines on the planet. And again, it's about Mother Nature. She gives you what she gives you, and then it can be produced to what you want in the winery with predominantly oak and age. So that is Garnacha. Now, Dina has a couple of slides, a presentation she can show us. You can go ahead and run that if you want. Ooh, look at that. It's like magic. So that is Borja. So we are in España, in the north central part of Spain. And you're all invited now. When you come, there's no excuses. You have to come to the winery because we are only 55 minutes from Barcelona and an hour and 5 minutes from Madrid. And those of you, before you correct me, will say, that's not true, Keith. Well, it is true if you take the express train. So the AVE train goes express, and the train goes 300 kilometers an hour. So just an hour from either Madrid or Barcelona. And for your geography, we are west and north of Barcelona, and we are almost due north of Madrid. So there you go. That is the Borja, the kingdom of Garnacha. Again, Aragon is known as the Kingdom of Garnacha. It's been producing Garnacha since the 12th century, and that seems to be the origin, and then it has spread all across the world. And most notably, to many Americans, know it as a Rhone Valley. Do we have any Rhone Rangers out there? Raise your hand if you're a Rhone Ranger. You know what that is, Rhone Rangers? Well, now you're part of the Aragon Army, to use that vernacular. So we appreciate that. And Borja is right under Rioja. That helps you. Rioja known for their Tempranillo, but we are Garnacha. And Garnacha now is again, the most planted varietal in the world. 20 million Garnacha clippings have now left Spain and France and spread out across the world in the last couple of years. That's 20 million clippings. So it's planted everywhere. So next slide. There's Spain, there we are. And there's the three peaks, the Tres Picos of the Moncayo range. So that is our winery in the foreground. You can see that spring. You can see the foliage on the plants. It's very green. So that's late spring, but still see the snow cap on the Tres Picos. Garnacha does very well across the world in very hot afternoons and very cold evenings, nights, and mornings. So it is a difficult thing to grow. Very finicky, but we'll get into that finicky later. So the high altitude and wind, whether it be in the Rhone or in Sardinia or in Priorat or in Borja in Aragon or in Australia, that seems to be a prerequisite for Garnacha. It needs hot afternoon sun, very cold rest of the day and night, and then that wind factor is everything. If you're in France and familiar with Grenache, the wind in the Rhone is called the Mistral. The wind in Borja is called the Cierzo, C-I-E-R-Z-O. Or if you lisp like the Spanish king lisp, it's Cerzo. So that's the correct way to pronounce it. Cierzo blows long and strong. It spins our windmills like pinwheels, and we actually sell electricity from the wind all the way over to Barcelona. Again, the winery now is completely run by solar and wind energy. And there we go. So next slide, there's the Tres Picos. So the next slide is the winery and the bundles. Again, Garnacha generally is bush find. That means low to the ground because of the wind in these areas, and little water. Very little water. That low to the ground is important for us. We try to keep it below the wind and thicken the stalk. So the wood is very thick, which also makes it very difficult to harvest. So most Garnachas are harvested by hand, especially with the older vines that we have from 20 to 100 years old. Very difficult to harvest it by machine. So it has to be hand harvested. So the Tres Picos that we'll be drinking soon and the Alto Moncayo Veraton are hand harvested. So next slide. It's a beautiful Tres Picos. So that is the Moncayo. Again, our wines are produced anywhere from 300 to 900 meters in the air. And we have very different soil profiles. You can see as you go into the mountain, we have white chalk, we have the red clay, and then we have a lot of the granite and schist and formation, which is where the flavor comes from. So that is the Tres Picos. Look, cool summer nights, cool mornings with that hot afternoon evenings. And Cierzo is the important part of our terroir, very unique to us. We have a climate that blows off the Atlantic, and it comes down through Rioja, bangs into the Moncayo off the Sierra Cantabrias, and it meets a climate off the Mediterranean, comes right up through La Mancha, and then bang, meets together with the Atlantic climate where we are. That's why the wind is crazy. So you will always have a jacket with you because the wind will kick up and it will be cool off the mountains. The snow caps last at least 6 months a year. So I was there before all this happened, and it's always snow capped late. So I do recommend that you come over and drink some wine with us, eat the almonds, but also if you come in the spring, please pick the mushrooms that grow as the snow recedes up the Moncayo. All right, next slide. That's the soils again. A lot of red slate, quartz. You don't see chalk in here, but all that minerality. So in Campo de Borja and most Garnacha regions like Priorat in Australia, in the Rhone, they really don't water the Garnacha. You want the roots to go deep, deep, deep into the soil. The farther they go into the soil, the more that flavor and minerality comes into the Garnacha wine. All right, next. Look at that. I went right into the vines and the deep root system. So that's where we are. That gives you a idea of the winery. That beautiful, you can see the Tres Picos up in the middle slide again. Again, we're hand-picked, very labor intensive. The great thing about Garnacha, great and difficult, finicky again, is that Garnacha peaks in about a 72-hour period. So very difficult as a grower and winery to have to rely on a picking crew and guesstimate when to hire them and bring them in. The good thing with us as a co-op, we have 300 plus families that when our winemaker or any Garnacha winemaker can say pick, you pick right there. So in the afternoons, you can take sugar samples, go to the lab, and then pick, swarm. Everybody comes out and picks each other's properties and where the wine team says to pick. Very important. Garnacha, hard grape to grow, very finicky, probably the most finicky grape I can imagine because of the amount of time, effort, energy, and exactness that it needs to produce great Garnacha. All right, I think that might be the last slide. Yeah, we're back. So who's drinking Tres Picos? Let's go to the Tres Picos. So the 3 peaks of the Moncayo, which you just saw, is the Tres Picos. This is 35 to 55-year-old vines, and it's located in Campo de Borja. Deep root systems. These are 6 to 7 foot rootstock into the soil, and it's the Tres Picos. We're very happy with this wine. Basically a flagship of Bodega Borsao. 3 times top 100 in the Wine Spectator in its history. Beautiful Garnacha, as it should be, with that little amount of oak, 4 months, new French oak, and 35 to 55-year-old vines, high elevation in Torreblanca. So, has anybody had a GSM before? Garnacha, Syrah, Mourvedre, very popular in the Rhone, super popular. This is 100% Garnacha, and we were one of the first to produce a straight Garnacha wine and take it around the world. We're very happy with this. Wish we could produce more, but it's not like vodka. You just can't make more. So again, this is straight Garnacha. If you've had a lot of Priorat, beautiful Garnachas, but usually always blended, lots of Carignan and other varietals. Again, the GSMs from Australia will have Syrah and Mourvedre or Monastrell in it. But this is a straight Garnacha and what it should be. And if we can do all that for the price you bought it for, that's why Garnacha, again, is one of my favorite wines. Now, I've had this with salmon in Oregon to barbecue in Louisville to Bobby Flay Steakhouse in New York. You know, this is a great, versatile wine, and that's what Garnacha is all about. It goes with almost anything you can throw at it. It's just a beautiful wine. So I'm going to ask for any questions now. Any questions? Anybody's needs anything? Javier, no questions? Dina, unmute. Don't forget to
Yeah,
unmute.
it looks like Felipe asked, why is growing Garnacha so popular now when it's so finicky?
Yes, good question. I think it's so popular because it's so darn good and tasty, and there's a demand for it because it is so versatile. Uh, it is finicky, but with the modern technology and what we know about grapes and science and the secrets out from great growers in the Rhone and throughout Spain, from Borja, from Aragon to Priorat, people know how to grow it. And there are areas that are growing. Again, 20 million cuttings is a lot of cuttings to go outside of Europe. So you're growing Garnacha now in Washington State, in South America, more so in Australia than past. You're seeing Garnacha, of course, in Sardinia. That's been there for quite a long time. But even in Africa, they're starting to grow Garnacha. There are places identified with high elevation, cool evenings and mornings, and that hotter sun. So you can do it, but you have to have the passion for it and really love this grape. I guess the real answer is because there's a demand. So where there is a demand, there is a way. So unfortunately, we're seeing Garnacha prices go up, up, up. Hate to see that, but there is a bigger demand worldwide. Okay.
There's two more questions, but two of them I can make into one. So how does Garnacha have such structure and age so well and still be so drinkable?
It's very different with structure and age. So it's so drinkable because there's so much fruit, right? Because everybody, I mean, I'm getting fruit like crazy out of this. So the idea with Borsao and mini Garnachas is that you have this beautiful red fruit in the attack, bright burst of red fruit raspberry, and then this mid palate of blueberry. Blueberry is very distinct in our wines, especially our red Garnachas that are unoaked. All the red Garnachas are oaked. It does have a little level of spice, almost Malbecian, with that little white pepper. There's a hint of white pepper. And then the back end has blackberry and then structure from the oak. So I start picking up the French oak mid palate of this wine. So by the mid palate, I get that French oak and structure. But the fruit is there. You have to have red fruit to blue fruit to black fruit in succession without crazy spikes up and down. So that nice level off of red, blue, and black fruit. And a lot of varietals just don't have that. I'm a graduate from Bordeaux College. Very familiar with too much Cabernet and Merlot in my lifetime. Love it, love it. But it is bold and in your face. This can be, as the French would call it, feminine, elegant, and subtle, but with more oak and age of vines, becomes more powerful and structured and, you know, hits you over the head with the flavor. So that's the long answer to that question. Hopefully I answered it with some passion. So
And I think you answered this just now. Is it aged in French or American oak, and
yeah.
for how long?
Yeah.
And are they new or old?
So the Tres Picos is 4 months in new French oak barrels. 4 months in new French oak barrels. Now, we use in different combinations with our wines. We'll get into the Veraton, and that's a little bit in French oak and a little bit in American oak and a little old barrel and a little second generation barrel. So that's part of the wine team and the manipulation of the Garnacha after Mother Nature takes the grapes so far, what we do with structure and length and vintage. So yeah, the 4 month new French oak, Tres Picos, the 3 peaks of the Moncayo, straight Garnacha. Not a lot of straight old vine Garnachas out there.
Mm-mm. What do you guys all think so far?
I saw a question from Seller. Well, I just had I just had the 2014 of the Tres Picos. It was top 100 in the Wine Spectator. It was brilliant. It was better now than it was when we first released it. I think a lot of you all are drinking 16, 17 maybe. Seems to be the consensus. And it's probably still tight. And after this call and when you start finishing the bottles, you'll like that last flavor even more. So it's ageable. I think optimum for us would be 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years for Tres Picos is a nice target, a pinnacle, top of the mountain area. It'll go longer, but it's up to you. If you like your Burgundies old, then age it older. You know, it'll get more raisiny and you'll taste a more powerful oak, but some of the red fruit will disappear. I like it about 4 to 5 years. Saw some other questions, but it's gone already.
Yeah, there's a few more questions. They're great questions. Does Borsao have any reserve wines?
Yes. Yeah, that's good. It's complicated because some of those wines aren't in the U.S. So Borsao is in 58 countries. If you go on the Borsao website, you'll see all kinds of different labels and things. So we do have different ages of Reserva wines. Now, Campo de Borja, unlike Rioja, is not designated in Reserva. So it's a little more wide open. So it's not an exact amount of age and time in oak like Rioja has very distinct mandated DO properties. So we have some older wines and more coming. And we like to consider the Alto Moncayo as the reserve wine of Borsao.
And then is there much variability in vintages of Garnacha?
Yes. Well, depends on which Garnacha you're drinking and who makes it. So some producers make kind of the same wine every year. That's cool. That's what their market and what they're going for. We don't do that. There's a lot of variation in the vintages. We don't manipulate what Mother Nature, we don't manipulate the starting point. So the most important part of the whole process to us is the grape and from nature. We're organic, sustainable, dry farmed, vegan. We don't even think in those terms because we've been doing that since the 12th century. So this new revelation of all these things are kind of boggle the mind of the people in Borja, the makers. Yeah, we've always been like that. It's not a thing. But for us, vintages are different and unique. We don't try to make the same wine or manipulate the vintage to make the same wine we made last year. We want them to be expressive. Sometimes, and I think that's a great philosophy, sometimes people don't respond to that, but that's not our target audience. And we're just trying to produce the best wine we can produce year to year, not make the exact same thing. It's not a factory with us. It's a passion and a food. This is a food. So the salmon should taste different every year. You know?
Should we talk about the Alto Moncayo Veraton?
Yeah, so the Alto Moncayo is our reserved wines, if you will. No designation. Oh, I gotta switch glasses. I got the big glass. I got the big boy for this one. So this is a Veraton. So these are older vines. These are 50 to 100-year-old vines. Let's put it in those terms. Basically, they're about 62 years old. 500 to 900 meters in elevation. Most of the Veraton comes from about 600 meters in elevation. Again, high, up the mountain, up into a Blanca, up the Moncayo, massive. This is 16 months in oak. So for those oak questionnaires out there, 16 months in oak. But it's not just French barrels. It's a combination of French and American barrels. So this is a little more French oak than American. General rule of thumb is 60-40, but that always changes year to year. We blend in the winery between the barrels. But 60-40, French to American oak barrels, then blend, and then a year in bottle at the winery, and then released. So you are all probably drinking the 16?
Yes.
16? Beautiful.
That's what Argonaut had on their shelf.
Yep. Excellent.
Classic, who's, Ken and Bruce are joining us. They are just starting to ship 17. So that's probably what will be replenished at Argonaut.
And that's great. The older the vintage, the better. And this will age Optimum for me, 8 to 12 years would be the best. You'll still get all that beautiful fruit. You'll still get all that structure. And it will be in that pinnacle, that top of the mountain, between 8 to 12 years in there. If you're drinking it now and just pull the cork, it's probably tight. Probably a little tight. Give it some air, give it some swirl, open it up. Best dish I've ever had with this wine. And if you can go get it or make it, whip it up, I had a rabbit risotto with 3 kinds of mushrooms. So the earthiness of the cremini, the shiitake, and the oysters, and a beautiful risotto reduction with saddle of rabbit seared. Tasty. Now, I've had it with mini paellas in Spain. That's darn tasty too. Seafood and meat, but that's where it should be consumed. Many steakhouses love this wine across the U.S. I've had it with ribeye. I've had it with porterhouse. Had it with filet, prime rib. I've had it with cedar plank salmon. If you're doing salmon with this wine, make sure it's on a cedar plank because that cedar comes out with the oak structure. And again, this is from the kingdom of Garnacha. It's where Garnacha started, initiated from the Aragon region and specifically Campo de Borja, that high elevation. We're very proud of that. So 16 months in oak for your questions. That was a great question about why so many people are growing Garnacha. They're putting themselves to a lot of trouble. Very finicky. Garnacha is also extremely susceptible to disease. And without that wind, that fan on the tight bundles of Garnacha, it gets rot and disease and bugs. Bugs love Garnacha, but like in Aragon and in Priorat and where we are and in Australia and Sardinia, you have enough wind to keep that fan on the vines and blow the bugs to kingdom come. So that wind, the Cerzo for us, is so important. But yeah, why would anybody put themselves through that when you can grow red Zinfandel like a weed?
Yeah.
I have no idea. But the demand's there and the passion for, you know, people in the wine business, and I see some people on this call that know this, it's not about being a millionaire. You know, go make vodka or bourbon or something else if you want to be a bajillionaire. This is about passion and food and quality of life and things, because you're at the mercy of Mother Nature year to year and your vines. So the wind, the dryness, we didn't even go into the dry. Generally, Garnacha needs to be in a dry area. Why? Because the rot. If it's very, very wet, those little bundles, and with no wind and wet and no sun, those bundles will rot into each other and mold up. So yeah, if you're thinking about new to the game and getting in the wine business, don't plant Garnacha. Do yourself a favor.
Krista and Chris and Jeannie are still asking great questions. So does the DO regulate minimum percentage of Garnacha? Is one question.
That is a great question, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. The president of the DO is president of Bodega Borsao. Yes, we are mostly Garnacha, probably 90%, 85% now. We have, in the last 15 to 20 years, planted a lot of Syrah. We have a little bit of Tempranillo on the northwest facing slope of Rioja. Tempranillo does very well there, a little tiny bit. But a lot of Syrah, 80, 90% Garnacha. We do a little Chardonnay and Macabeo for our white wine. I recommend that. If you're out there, if you like our wines, go to Borsao White. It's the same price as the Rosé. But that's what we grow. So there's no absolute for Campo de Borja that you have to have so much hectares in Garnacha, but we're well over 90% probably. Yeah, a little more Syrah now. And a whole lot of almonds. You guys have we should have almonds here. Americana
I think we all love the Marcona almonds just a little too much. So the other question was, and this kind of goes, I jumped ahead because I was trying to do the questions in order, but this kind of relates back to what we were talking about, how finicky Garnacha is. And the question is, are the other Rhone varietals more tolerant to the same issues that Garnacha is?
Well, like the GSMs are very, in the Rhone, there could be up to 13 different grapes. We don't go into all those, predominantly Syrah and Garnacha and Mourvedre. So they are finicky. I don't think they're as finicky as Garnacha. And people that grow Garnacha in Australia and Priorat will tell you it's a tough go. And again, I can't stress enough, we're so fortunate to have the pickers that are owners. The families are owners. I don't know about the child labor laws, but there's a lot of pride there, and they're owners. So they're hand picking these grapes. Can you imagine? All these were hand picked, basket, and then taken down to the winery just a few kilometers away and start the maturation process. And the same with Tres Picos. People are amazed when they find out that Tres Picos is hand harvested. They think Tres Picos, that's everywhere. That must be millions of cases. Well, it's really not. You're very fortunate in Colorado that you have a long history with Tres Picos in your state. It was an allocated wine for years and years and years. And the other good thing about Tres Picos and Alto Moncayo is half the production comes to the United States. Now, our biggest market by far for Borsao is Spain, as it should be, by far. But the US, from the high-end wines, gets a lot of the production. Some of that's economic reasons, and we've just had an imprint here, and that's a good thing. So, what are we tasting with the Alto Moncayo Veraton, the 2016/maybe 17 coming up? Same Garnacha that was in the rosé. Can you believe that? That's why I love Garnacha. Who can make a rosé like we just did of Garnacha grape, a rosé, make the Tres Picos, and then make Veraton? So the difference between the rosé and the Veraton is just age of vine, higher elevation, and oak. So the oak comes in the winery. But Mother Nature, it's just age of vine and elevation. That's why Garnacha is my favorite. And I recommend all Garnachas. Drink Priorat, drink the Rhone. I'm a Chateau Neuf de Pape guy. Who doesn't like the ninth house of the Pope? I'm not even Catholic, and I like the nice ninth house of the Pope. Sorry, it's Friday, right? We can make a joke. So, try it from Australia, compare. Garnacha is just a great grape that can be so wide in different food choices. And each little Garnacha can go with different pairings in food, from, salmon to paella. I mean, it's just crazy what you can do with this wine. Because I could drink all three of these on the patio by themselves, quite frankly. There's not a lot of wines. Like, I can't drink Bordeaux on the patio by itself. And I love Bordeaux. But I can do that. But I can go in and have a steak and drink this Alto Moncayo, quite frankly, or Tres Picos. I'm going to barbecue this weekend, and Tres Picos is going to be in the sauce and what I drink. My barbecue for my with my family and neighbors that will come over. Social distancing, of course. But yeah, Garnacha is just spot on. And please search for your favorite Garnachas. I think it will be Bodega Borsao or Alto Moncayo, but there's some great Garnachas. And we make a wide variety. So you've had some pretty good stuff. We make 2 levels even higher than the Veraton. We make the Alto Moncayo, which are older vines and higher elevation, and then a little wine called Aquillon, which I think Denver gets 4 packs. So if you can find it, God bless. But probably the distributor's drinking it, so you'll never find it. So, questions?
Another one, how much tourism is there in Borja?
Well, we are very close to Saragossa. So Saragossa is the 4th or 5th largest city in Spain, depending on which Spaniard you ask. I don't have the definitive on that, everyone. So come to Saragossa, and there's a lot of great museums. And in October, they have the huge festival, and everybody wears their bandana, the Borja bandana, and it's half of Europe is there. Certainly not as much tourism as Barcelona or Madrid, but a lot of wine tourism. So if you rent a car or want to take a train, you're only about 30 minutes, 40 minutes from Rioja as well. And they make unbelievable wines too. Tempranillo is the largest grown grape in Spain. And depending upon who you ask, Ball is second and Garnacha third. But if you ask someone else, they might tell you Garnacha second now because it's really being planted and there's a demand for it around the world. And not many people know Ball. So Tempranillo to Garnacha. Well, that's like comparing Pinot Noir to Cabernet. Tempranillo is straight down the middle, beautiful, bold, very impactful, a lot of great flavors, very masculine, as the French would say. It would be a masculine Bordeaux. And then Garnacha is like, if you've never had Garnacha, I describe it as Pinot Noir on steroids. Much more elegant and finesse, still has power. We're drinking a powerful wine here, a big, powerful wine, but generally you're, $9.99 bottle of Garnacha unoaked is much more fruit, red, raspberry fruit, strawberry in the attack. And Tempranillo is really dark fruits and big, powerful. I saw something about masculine. Well, if you're looking for a masculine Garnacha, find that bottle of Acquillon that the distributor in Denver won't give up, and then come back and tell me. It might cost you $500. Acquillon, we make 244 packs for the world, and so it's 100-year-old vines and 24 months in just French oak. So the Veraton that we're drinking is 16 months in French and American oak blended, and the Acquillon is 24 months in just French barrels and much older vines. So it can be very masculine. It can be like one of my favorite wines in the world in Bordeaux College was Chateau de Cru Moncayo. It's a second growth Bordeaux. Oh, masculine. So masculine just means more bold. So that's a great question. I just saw the masculine. I didn't see that thing. So masculine is, does anybody know the Flintstones? So feminine wine is like pebbles. It's subtle and sweet and talks to you and it's nice. And masculine wine is like bam bam. It beats you over the head with its flavor. So it's a big stick and it's very masculine. It's very structured, very big, needs powerful food as a complement. That's what the masculine term in the wine business generally refers to.
I have never heard that analogy ever.
Well, I didn't go to Haifa, but I did go to
That works.
And then, in France, everything is, even the vocabulary is masculine or feminine. It's la or la. So in French, it's, I guess that's what I get that experience from, feminine and masculine wine. Feminine to the French is very, and we're a stone throw from France in Spain. So very masculine is heavy and bold, and Cabernet from California, kind of bold. And then feminine is more like a Burgundy and more elegant. That's the French. Don't judge me. I cover everybody. Any other questions?
You guys have had great questions. I love it.
Questions. So welcome to the Aragon Army. Not a Rhone Ranger. We're in the beautiful Aragon. And come and see us. Come visit us. Again, try different Garnachas, as I'm proud of ours, and I think you'll come back to ours at some point as well. Thank you for joining us on this Memorial Day. How did we do on time? Did I make it? Oh.
We're great. Look at cute little Tanner's baby. We've had a baby and a pup make an appearance here. Love it.
I saw a great question pop up, the Barolo and Barbaresco. That's a great analogy too. The difference between Garnacha and Tempranillo is like Barolo and Barbaresco. Very good. There's some cork dorks out there. Some wine aficionados, I see. That's good stuff.
I like the, how long have you been in Aragon? We kind of said it in the very beginning, but I think it's worth repeating for sure.
Producing wine since the 12th century. So the Borgia, the Romans settled in Campo de Borja and been producing wine since the 12th century. And then it spread from Aragon up through the Rhone and where those growers could take it down to through Italy and then around the world. So our logo is actually on your bottles, is the Roman coin from the 12th century. So when you come to the winery, you'll see the coins at the winery, but that's the Borgia that settled there, making the great crops again of come see us and have the mushrooms and have the alfalfa and have the white asparagus that were known throughout Europe, the white asparagus from Borsao, which is a great, asparagus is horrible with wine, but our white asparagus is a totally different flavor, actually goes with wine. So it's good stuff. Any other questions about Garnacha? Should we do more Grenache service? Show of hands, who's had Rhone Valley Grenache? Yeah, I see some Rhone Rangers out there for sure. And I'm a Rhone Ranger, I love the Rhone. But you see the spice and what Garnacha can be and how it goes with things. The good thing is, with Garnacha from Spain, it hasn't caught up to price with the French Rhone. And that, I think I don't think it's about the product. I think the product is very equal. I think it's just 50 years head start on marketing. If you know Spanish history, Franco was kind of an isolationist and we didn't market the Garnacha around the world. The French had 50 years ahead of us to go and around the world and build a demand. So yeah, California does have a group called Rhone Rangers. Rhone Rangers exist around the world. And more Garnachas being produced in California. I just saw some more clippings went to Santa Barbara. So with the cool areas, anybody know LA, but Santa Barbara is that weird thing. Prices, that's a good question. Prices have only increased for us with alcohol levels 14% and below. So it had an effect on the rosé, but we kind of ate the price along the way between marketing and winery. So we're making less money, but we kept the pricing intact. The reds that we make are over 14% alcohol so they have not been affected as of yet. Who knows what happens tomorrow? But no price increase or tariff on our reds, which is good. Hopefully we can keep it that way and keep going. You know, you can make speculations or not, but just the white and the rosé for us were affected in price, and we just ate it between importer and winery. So hopefully not. Tariffs would be bad. That would be awful.
Yes.
I just found out the other day, again, that we are the #1 rosé, not just Spanish rosé, the #1 rosé in all of Canada. You believe that? Crazy. White grapes, excellent. So we make one white, and we make that with a 50-50 combination of Chardonnay that we plant and Macabeo. Anybody's had Cava before? So you know, Macabeo is one of the grapes in Cava. We grow a little Macabeo and a little Chardonnay, and we make a little bit of white, not much. And that goes around the world to different areas. The Japanese drink the most of our white outside of Spain, in Japan. Somebody was asking a question, but everybody's on mute.
Yeah, I think everybody's on mute, but there was a Garnacha differently in Old World versus New World. So, have a tasting profile, I'm guessing,
That's a
Krista?
great question. Yeah, I mean, generally, the Old World Garnacha, as the French would call it, tastes like the dirt off the truffle pig's nose. And if you're French, your loins just tingle a little bit with that analogy. Now, for most Americans, they don't find that appealing. But yeah, the dirt and barnyard and funk is more the Old World. And then the New World Garnacha is a little more brighter fruits. Great question for us. Let's be honest. Borsao makes a tweener. The Garnacha from Aragon are kind of between Old World and New World. It's not funky, but it's not, it's still some Old World qualities in this wine. So we're kind of walking the line there of a classic Old World to a classic New World. Yeah, the American oak and New World Garnacha, well, you know, it's a crazy world. I think the Washington State people are using a lot of American oak in some of their stuff, and second generation or third generation barrels. Big experiment in Washington State about Garnacha. See what's going on. There's definitely a demand for it. Your prisoner folks are planting a lot of Garnacha in Washington State. Feeney and the groups that own those wines. Making more GSMs, making more their blends. Maybe won't have them Monastrell or Mourvedre, but maybe more Syrah and Pinot, and who knows. That's a great thing about wine. It's a great experiment, and the centuries and the flavor profiles will make it. You can do whatever you want, generally, if you're not in a restrictive DO. But yeah, try the white. White's delicious. Our white is real pineapple-y. The Chardonnay is not oaked, and the Macabeo is oaked. We had to experiment and certainly tried it the other way. But we found the Macabeo 1 month in French oak is perfect, rounds out the Macabeo. And then the Chardonnay is in tank. For our Chardonnay, the tank works much better. So very interesting profile. Somewhere between a Sancerre and a Chardonnay. It's pretty cool. Kind of works with that. And we have a lot of Syrah. So if you like Borsao and see some Syrah on the shelf upcoming, try our Syrah because it does do very, very well. Syrah for us was Chris Ringland. I don't know if anybody knows Chris Ringland. So he's a great Australian winemaker, and he's been involved with us since the first of the century, 2000s. And we actually, on his request, planted a bunch of Syrah from Australia into Spanish soil, and it does great. So we are going to do a lot more Syrah. Yes, Shiraz, but we're north of the equator, so we call it Syrah. Yeah, we took his Shiraz and planted in Spanish soil, and it instantly became Syrah. But yeah, his Shiraz is that Barossa Valley Shiraz is what we planted in Spanish soil. And that's really cool blend too. So there'll be some GSs coming up. I don't think we're going to mess with the Monastrell or Mourvedre. So that is it. Does any other questions, or are we well on our way for a great Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, we are. What a great way to start a great weekend.
And I really appreciate y'all for taking time out. Good, cool stuff. And enjoy and relax and stay safe and try it with a lot of different food.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I just was, before any of you like log out, I think I can do this. Hold on. I think I can. The question is, she thinks she can, but can she? So Sheila just wanted me to make sure, because you guys can't buy when we're on a live Zoom. And so here's the pricing that she has. The $8, the rosé is on sale for $8. Fantastic price. The Veraton is $16 for $32. The next shipment might be 2017, but that's a great thing to have happen. And then the Tres Picos, which is such a great wine, for $16. So
that's too low. I've got to raise my prices. I'm raising my prices tomorrow.
But I just want to thank everybody so much for logging in, and what a great way to start your weekend. And so great for us to start with you.
Felipa, Bruce, Ken, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Keith.
Anastasia, Mark, David, everybody. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Keith.
you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Cheers.
Good stuff. I like it.
Good stuff. I
Yeah.
love
Yep.
it.
Keith, thanks for doing it.
No, Tanner, appreciate you.
Yeah,
You've
of
met
course.
Tanner before, right, Keith?
I have not, I don't think. Maybe
I don't think so.
Are you a?
I didn't have a beard, so maybe I'm
Yeah.
unrecognizable.
I had to whack mine off because I was doing so many of these. I was looking a little scraggly. But
Nice.
they kept me on.
So he's the classic rep that covers Argonaut.
Excellent. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Hopefully that.
No, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for doing it.
Good. No, my pleasure. Yeah. We got to do something, right? In these crazy
That was
times.
great.
It's nuts, and they've been a great client and for a long time. So.
Yeah, the wines are doing really well there, so just keep it going, you know?
You have a good one there. Very attentive young lad.
He is.
So, what do they carry there? At Argonaut?
So they have
Obviously, these three.
Borsao, Vino Borgia box, Vino Borgia
Great.
750, Alto Moncayo, and then the Veraton also.
How's the box doing?
Box is cranking.
Good. Good.
People are going crazy.
That box, we're seeing that not just in the U.S. but around the world. The box is just.
People are,
I mean, it was already doing good, but now it's just on fire. I think economically and where we're at, and amount of consumption and the convenience, and don't want to go to the store every day, and just throw it in the
no,
fridge.
exactly.
Good. I appreciate that. That is
Throw it
awesome.
in the fridge. Yeah, no, things are good.
You get 4 bottles, and they're gone before you know you've drank 4 bottles.
People are drinking. I mean, it's
Yeah, you're right.
it's
Consumption's gone up.
a real thing, you know. Dina's always been drinking, but you know,
I'm drinking a little less finally because usually I'm on the road and doing wine dinner after wine dinner and with you all, and stuff. And Spain is, I needed a liver after that visit, so I'm trying to limit myself, but enjoying. But yeah, the Borsao was great. Appreciate you selling it, and we're doing really good stuff and across the board. And Classic is one of the best houses we have. I mean, they're so good. You know where we.
no,
were.
it's great.
They were very good before us and did a nice job, but Classics picked up the ball and ran with it and doing some good stuff. And Dina is, of course, knocking them dead. And Tanner, you can tell I'm a sales guy, and this is a pleasure to sell.
No, for sure. I'm the same way. It's almost too easy.
Well, once you place it, you just pick up the phone and take the reorders and cash the check. Hopefully, you still
Gotta
want
do it.
please work it and do all your stuff. But
Right.
it's such a great wine to place it. It stays there forever and go nuts. Now, you're just off premise solely, or?
No, I do both. I'm about 80% off premise, about 20 on.
Yeah, 80-20 on.
80-20.
Now, are you guys popping open outdoor patios and stuff, or?
They're about to start, maybe. I don't know. Dina, what do you know?
Actually, I think today it came out that there was no actual formal number for the patios, and the numbers
Okay.
kind of seems weird, but they're
'Cause I can go.
masks, and you have to be 8 feet away, and
I can drive 30 minutes to Wisconsin and sit on patios all day long. I can do an hour and a half drive over, well, a little farther than that because I don't want to sit in Erie. But I would go to Indiana and sit on a patio all day long. But in Illinois, no, we're definitely locked, through probably June, especially in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger the city, I think the more difficult it's going to be to,
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
Tanner,
I used to live in New York, and the tables are like
wow.
5 inches away from each other. I mean, what are you going to do?
I don't know
Yeah.
where people make money. 25% seating is like 3 tables.
Yeah.
You're in there. It's gonna be it's a new challenge in the world, but we'll get through it. I think it's a good time for restaurants and for us to try to partner as much as we can and be value. I mean, I don't know who Krista is. Hi, Krista.
just told me that she's really enjoyed doing them. She did the French one last Sunday, and they're doing a Napa one this Wednesday. And
Is
Krista,
Krista?
that's great. I don't know if you're listening. It's great feedback.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, hi. Sorry to be a weird lurker.
I didn't want to.
Me rushing in but anyway, yeah, that was really great. Thank you. And a lot of the questions were from my husband. So
Nice.
You're not, it's great because Sheila, who's the wine buyer for Argonaut, she asks questions of like, how did this go and what's the feedback? Because it's hard to know And so this is really great.
I know you're being so good.
Oh, and they
Yeah.
want
And the
It's
baby
very
said,
fun to do something different
you're
while we're just in this house all the time. So, oh yeah, we have a request for champagne. So,
Champagne.